What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Wisconsin Sportsman Podcast, which is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear. I'm your host, Pierce Nellis, and this is your home for all things hunting, fishing, and conservation in the Badger State. Folks, I hope you're all doing well. As I record this, I'm coming off of a couple back-to-back guide trips. Did a lot more talking than I remembered I do on some of these trips. So if the voice sounds a little hoarse, got a nice hot cup of tea here sitting next to me, so hopefully it don't sound too bad. But man, what a string of days it has been so far. We're coming off of busy guide week, coming off of the open season expo where I got to brush shoulders and see some familiar faces from the show and folks that you've heard from over the last couple of years, which is always a pleasure, always super fun. One thing that stuck out to me this year, and I'm hoping I'm not the only one who took notice of it. So if you were coming from the south, you presumably come up, at least I did, came up through, Sauk, Baraboo, and then came in on the south end of the Dells. The first light to get to the Kalahari, where the expo was closed off. They were bypassing traffic down to the second one. Now, when you got to the second one, you'd hang a right, and it would take you down past this kind of strange subdivision, a couple cornfields and stuff like that. But right when you turned right to go down there was some business that was, I don't know if they were doing horseback riding, if it was some sort of a stable or something like that. But there was a statue outside that establishment. Maybe it stood out to you guys as much as it stood out to me. From my interpretation, it looked a lot like a big, and this thing's probably 20 feet tall, a big stallion, and sitting bareback on it looked a heck of a lot like our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, with a big old sword extended up above his head. And when I took a Snapchat of it, as I was driving by, as I was stopped at the light, actually, not driving by, I was not in motion. I'll disclaim that. I sent it to a couple buddies, like, can you believe this? Like, who built this thing? Who commissioned this? Because, I mean, incredible. But I got a couple responses from people saying, does that statue have a cigarette hanging out of his lip as well, on top of riding bareback on a stallion with an Excalibur extended above above its head? And I don't know. I didn't save the picture. So tell you what, if you saw that statue and you know what I'm talking about, maybe you're a Wisconsin Dells local, you pass that on the way to work on a semi-regular basis, please write in and confirm whether or not the big J-man happened to have a dart hanging out of his lip or not, because I need answers to that question, because I was taken aback. I was perplexed. I was captivated. And I was left with more questions than answers. I'll leave it at that. But one of the people I got a chance to chat with a while, not as long as I would have liked, but that's part of the reason why he's on here right now, is a good buddy, Matt Streim. He's the host of the Okayest Fisher Podcast. He's the owner of Weathered Oaks Game Calls. He's a hell of a turkey hunter. You guys have heard him a couple years ago, I think it was. I think, Matt, you were one of my OG turkey guests from the first year hosting, I think. But I've got Matt Streim on the line. Matt, how are we doing this evening? And did you also see that statue?
I'm doing great, and I did not see that statue. So we got,
dang it,
as being vendors there, we got to go in early and leave late. So we got to take whatever way we wanted in and out of that place. So
okay, sure, shoot. I was gonna. I'm glad you had an explanation for that, and I wasn't just like maybe the only person who was like hallucinating and just happened to see this crazy statue off on my own. And I don't know. Hopefully, people write in and they just say like, yeah, no, that doesn't exist. It's not there. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. But well, dude, how was the? We were kind of just chatting about it. How was the show for you guys?
It went really good. So I was in the Okayest Hunter booth as the Okayest Fisher / I had a couple of my turkey calls in there too. It went really good. Friday was a lot busier than last year. Cool part about having crappy weather for the majority of that weekend was it got people inside.
Yep.
And we always make the joke, it's like everybody waits in line to go indoors to talk about the outdoors. So it's always comical in that front. But no, it was a great show. Saturday, I remember seeing you. The rest of the day was a blur. It was
Yep.
that chaotic there. I mean, you saw a little bit of what we were going through in the booth at that time, but yeah, she was. It was a good show for us.
Awesome, man. Glad to hear it. Yeah, you guys got the hot corner in that whole layout of that show. Like you are at the absolute epicenter of everything going on, folks filtering in and out of the rooms. And I always love stopping by your booth because you guys do a hell of a job and everything just looks awesome. It looks like you're hanging out at a hunting cabin, honestly. Like it's just it feels homey every time you swing over there. It's a good time, man. I love it. Well, dude, how has the spring been for you so far? Has it
Um,
been are we seeing birds in fields? Are we doing any spring fishing, late winter action or anything?
I will say,
Early I guess we can't do early muskie yet, but,
no, not yet.
no.
I'll say which spring because we've had like 4 springs this
The
springtime.
current one.
No, I haven't done any fishing. We wrapped up trade show. I got a wedding I don't know when this is airing, but a wedding this weekend. Um, I'm hoping, and we're gonna get a lot of rain the next couple of days. I was gonna go
Mhm.
try for some steelhead, late steelhead because the run's almost over by us. So I haven't done any fishing yet this spring. Being the host of a fishing podcast is tough. I get to talk to a lot of people that do a lot of fishing, but as for turkeys, they're everywhere. Strutting. It's I almost crashed my truck probably 43 times in the past 2 weeks just staring at turkeys out in the fields.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, they don't ever tell you that when you get into the outdoor space, whether you're, a podcaster like you and I are, or, you're maybe a professional, somebody who's got a shop or, works outside or does whatever. You get to be a part of the industry, but yeah, it definitely cuts into your outdoor time a little bit more than they let on off the bat. I remember talking to a buddy of mine who owns a fly shop, and I was like, "So what do you think of it? How do you like it?" He's like, "It's awesome if you don't like it and to go fish." It's like, well, that's a bummer. I appreciate the transparency, but I think I'm gonna stick to guiding and fishing myself. I think, but I'm glad to hear that you're seeing turkeys out and about. I have just in the past couple of days, so we're recording this on April Fool's Day here, this Wednesday evening. And the past 2 days, that Monday, Tuesday, Monday was, shoot, it felt like a summer day. It was like almost 80 degrees. And that morning, as I was driving up for a trip, which is kind of perfect, I was shooting all the way up to Baroqua and saw a pile of birds flocked up and I was catching them all right kind of at fly down as I left before dark or before first light and everything. So I got to see a bunch of them right off the roost out in the fields. It was dropping pins like crazy. And then the same thing on the way home and even on Tuesday as well. I found a couple flocks as well. One of them on a T-Hat property that I was pretty fired up about. Maybe I've said too much there. If you know of any T-Hat properties near a trout stream, terrible. Don't go there. But but I'm stoked that you're seeing birds because yeah, I feel like it's been kind of a cold start. Maybe it's just the hills, the terrain, or whatever, where I've kind of been running around in. But I know it's over by you. You're dealing with a lot more open ground, a lot more kind of flatland turkey hunting type stuff. So I'm glad that you've been able to put eyes on birds and everything. As this comes out, we're going to be a week out from our opening. I guess not our opener because we've got youth season, but then the following Wednesday we're going to kick off with our season A tag here. What does last minute season or turkey season prep look like for you?
That looks like every turkey season prep for me. So we're literally in the shop, still, building calls, still trying to get everything put together, shipping out orders. Uh, I got a daughter, I got a wife, I got full-time job, podcasting. So my turkey stuff is still intermixed with my late season fall hunting stuff. The first step for me is getting all my camo situated. Oh no,
Mhm.
let me back up. My first step is putting my ice fishing gear away because that's still sitting in. Um, but no, I like to go through my gear. Preferably not 2 days before season starts, but kind of like to go through everything, things that I forgot to clean or didn't make it into like my fall bow hunting bin or go through the pockets of my turkey vest. I kind of just like to clean everything out, lay everything out on the ground. I'm a very visual person, so I want to see everything because otherwise I can visualize where one sock might be, but I want to see both of them put together.
Yep.
I just like to kind of go through stuff like that. Start with the basics. Make sure you got clothes to wear out there. Then kind of slowly branch into everything else you need. But
Yeah, totally, man. I love it. On the note there of getting everything together, laying everything out, you, as we mentioned, you've got your own turkey call business. You also sell grunt tubes and some pretty badass hats that I'm going to be placing an order for after we hang up here. But what should folks be thinking about and doing just in terms of checking on their calls, maybe a little preseason conditioning? Like, what are the things folks should be looking at prior to the season when it comes to making sure that every call is going to be running properly?
so I can give the most advice about pot calls, and it actually starts at the end of the previous season, is you really want to take them out of your pockets. And where you store them matters, especially when it's custom calls like we make. We do make them, it's all handmade. Everything is, wood that we harvest, that we kiln dry, but there's always slight variances to that. So if you leave it on the dashboard of your truck and it gets to be 80, there's a good chance that glass is going to break. So I always like to, so one thing I do take care of at the end of the season. So I'll pull all the calls out of my, all the pod calls out for sure. Box calls, a little less weary on that. Mouth calls, if you didn't pull your mouth calls out, just throw them away and buy new ones.
Gross.
They will have a lot of penicillin and stuff growing on that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's mostly heat, and I'm assuming humidity that's going to throw a wrench in your pod calls, correct?
Yep,
In
anything.
terms of like storing.
Yep, you can think of it as just a normal piece of wood that we take a lot of material out of, so it's a lot thinner than a 2x4. And you can see how some of those Menards and Home Depot 2x4s are. You know, they're from the crookedest tree in the whole whole acreage there.
Hmm.
So you just want to make sure you keep them inside, out of direct sunlight. Just not leave them in your garage. Although we've done a lot of testing, we'll leave them in our trucks for a couple of weeks. We'll leave them outside in the cold and the heat and the weather. We do a lot of testing, but nothing can compare it for like real world stuff. So we can do the best we can to try to keep our tolerances, good. But we've all had glass crack in a pod call before. I know I have.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, one thing like your pot call that double sided the slate and the glass for folks who don't know, like well, I guess let me ask you that. Tell folks a little bit about your pot calls and kind of what that combination does for you, and kind of some of your thought and everything that goes into the design of those calls.
Sure. The double sided ones are unique, and we didn't launch them until probably 2 or 3 years into Weathered Oaks itself. We started out with typical pod calls. I got to the point where I was carrying 3 or 4 pod calls around with me to achieve different goals, different sounds. And I talked to my business partner and we're like, we got to figure out a way to do this. I know there's been double sided calls out there before. The ones that I've seen out, and I'm not a company basher, they look beautiful. Ours may not look as cool as some of them, but ours is very functional where you get good sound out of both sides, like consistently good sound out of both sides. So it took us, I think I had 8 or 9 prototypes I handed out to test that first year of development. And then we finally narrowed it back to what we have now. But you can, the plastic glass side, you're able to cut through the wind. That's like your locator call. And when they get in close, you can flip it over and use the slate, and it's a little bit softer of a tone, different tone too. And that seems to me, kind of drive the turkeys a little crazy.
Hmm.
But I've also heard people say they get louder on the slate side, and I really want to like meet them in person and figure out how they did that, because I was never able to get loud noises out of the slate side.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to circle back to that point right there, because I have run one of your calls for the last 3 years now, and as an outdoorsman, I think we all kind of fall into that habit of like, well, what new gear could I maybe get for this year? What do I need that I didn't realize I needed? Um, and I tell you what, when it comes to pot calls, I don't need another one because of your two-sided design and the fact that both sides sound fantastic. Like I have zero, like I've never felt like there's been a shortcoming on one of your calls where it's been too windy that I couldn't cut through things with that glass side and well, I guess, you know what? We're going to circle back to it right now. I have had really good luck with that slate side, especially for like really sharp cuts. I don't know if it's because it's in that little bit of a concave position, or maybe it's just the slate. It's a little bit more abrasive than that blasted glass, but I feel like I can get so much more pop and percussion. And maybe it's just because it's like kind of facing back at me, maybe, or it's just in my hand. It seems like it, maybe to me, it pops with a little bit more like percussion than a regular slate does. But I don't know, man. I think I might side with the folks who think that the slate might be a little bit louder. That also said, I also hadn't properly conditioned my glass until my very last hunt of the season last year. And I tell you what, once I got that thing scuffed up a little bit, holy smokes, was that stuff loud. I absolutely loved it. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between, you've got your blasted glass, which I think some folks, if they're not familiar with it, they might see that blasted glass and be a little bit I don't know, just might have a question about it, I guess, because you see so many, quote unquote, crystal calls that are smooth glass. Maybe they've got something etched in the back of them or a picture in the back, whatever. Those kind of ones. Talk to me about why you went with the blasted glass over the smoother stuff.
Uh, sure. I'm going to say thank you for all those comments. I don't take compliments well, so I really appreciate that. You're having success with the call. Um, so you kind of hear the old wives' tale or old farmer's tale where the slate's the easiest call to use, right? You've
Hmm.
all heard that before. To me, the barrier to entry is glass. Because slate, you still have to condition it, you still have to scuff it down. And I feel like slate, because it absorbs moisture so well, uh, it's a little more finicky on those dewy or damp mornings. The cool thing about glass in general or crystal in general is it doesn't absorb moisture. Like you can pour water on slate and some of that water disappears because it gets absorbed in there. Pour it on glass, you can just tip it over and all the water runs off. That being said,
For sure.
glass and crystal is super cool. Um, but the barrier to entry on that is terribly difficult because you got to have a conditioning stone with you. It's not just sand. Well, you could do it with sandpaper, but you'll be sore because it takes quite a bit. We sell conditioning stones just for that purpose to scuff up those. They do offer a little bit different sound because you're really like dialed into one spot on that call. But why we went with blasted glass is it's basically a preconditioned like striking surface. And the cool thing about that is you can spin that call. If you think you're wearing out one spot, say at 12 o'clock on the call, you can spin that call and you'll have 100 different spots to call and it all produces the same amount, like the same sound. So that's why we went with that. The other thing we went with is it's like a diamond wood. It's a press board, a lot denser wood where it's able to grab onto those micro abrasions that blasted glass is. And it makes that sound really pop. So that's kind of why we went with blasted glass. And to me, if you're starting off turkey hunting with a pot call, I would get a blasted glass call because to me, it's the easiest to work.
Yeah, definitely. And you're not kidding about the little bit of a learning curve with the glass there, which is why I was so happy that it had the two sides. Because when I was sitting there and I got a little squeaky because I hadn't, I'm just going to come out and say it. I didn't realize you needed to condition pot calls until last season, right at the end, and that was the first time that I actually like sanded the tip of my striker, scuffed up a little patch there, and happened to be like in the middle of a hunt with my buddy about 5 minutes before we shot a bird. But this is all new information to me, right? And so my novice ass for the last couple of years, when I've worn those spots on the glass a little bit smoother, I've kept it in my pocket or I've done something that's, basically just smoothed out the tip of my striker or anything. I was super happy that I had this the slate side on the opposite or on the flip of it, so that I could still make some sound and do that. But that makes perfect sense about why you'd go blasted glass. I figured that was probably why. And man, like we were talking about, dude, those things cut through the wind when you need them to, like almost to the point where it's like I gotta like dial this thing back a little bit. But that's the only one I'm getting in too close to the roost there. But I love it, man. That's awesome. And on top of that, you mentioned you've got new uh, conditioning stones and everything, custom handmade little conditioning stones, a couple varieties of wood. You got some new pot call covers that you just came out with as well, which are freaking badass. I love your logo, by the way. Not to keep making you uncomfortable with compliments, but I don't know, I'm fired up. I've had that thing sitting on my desk all day since I got back from the all week, I guess, since I got back from the show, and just keep looking at it. I'm like, Yeah, I like that turkey foot. Just looks good. But
It's funny. I don't know if I mentioned it on shows before, but so that turkey foot, it's a little bit different than a normal turkey foot. And if you look close enough, it's actually a W and an O for weathered oaks. So
is it really?
yeah, we tweaked that turkey foot. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's just a stock image off the internet." I got the video clip of my sister-in-law designing that foot where it's spread open just a little bit more, the toe's a little bit different, and yeah, so it's actually supposed to be a W and an O for weathered oaks.
That's sick, dude. I love it. I like it even more now. So you've been driving around. You've been seeing plenty of flocks out in the fields and stuff, I'm assuming. This time of year, obviously, we're still dealing with like flocked up birds, right? They're still very much in a group and everything. At what point in the season? Because that's, you know, the way Wisconsin seasons are structured, by week. I feel like that's just kind of the brain that I start to think of a turkey season going in, right? It's like, yeah, like first season, they're usually still pretty flocked up. By third season, it can be kind of hit or miss. When do you tend to see those birds start to split up and kind of break out of their flocks over by you?
It all depends on the weather, man. I'm not gonna lie. This year, I
Yeah.
thought it was gonna be super early, but then we got, 14 inches of snow and a blizzard, and then 4 days later, it was 60 again. So I don't know if the birds 100% know what's going on. Um, as we record this, about a week and a half ago, I went out shed hunting, and I bumped a big flock of birds, hens and toms. So as of then, I mean, that was before the bigger warm up we had. They were still flocked up.
Hmm.
Typically, I mean, I've hunted first periods before where there's snow on the ground still, and that's kind of a pretty clear and concise, like, "Hey, they're still flocked up."
Yep.
I would say for sure by the start of the second period, um, they're gonna start to be separated up, and it doesn't mean they're not, starting to pick the pecking order in the flocks right now. Like, that's kind of an ongoing battle, I think, once it starts to turn towards the warm side of the spring.
Yeah, definitely. That was a perfect segue. That was one of my questions of whether or not you thought weather or if it was just like an internal clock timing thing played the biggest impact. And I'm right there with you. I think when it's cold and nasty, they tend to kind of delay their activity a little bit more, and they maybe aren't quite as susceptible or just willing to break off. Like I mean, there's no bigger bummer than having to hunt turkeys in like really crappy weather, right? Like when you get those mornings that are like, yeah, maybe it's like high 30s, like low 40s or something, kind of drizzly, kind of cold and windy. It's like this just doesn't feel quite like turkey hunting weather, but uh not to say you can't kill birds in it, but yeah, it's definitely, you can tell it's like the birds are definitely like fair weather fans of themselves. Um, I think in a lot of the a lot of parts of the state there. That's funny, man. Um, so talk to me a little bit about, you hunt in the eastern part of the state for the most part. It's a lot flatter over there. Um, very different from hunting like hill country birds where you're dealing with a lot more elevation change and stuff like that. Do you think birds in flatter, or like on flatter ground, do you tend to find them to be a little bit more patternable, just given the limited terrain, or do they move around quite a bit over by you?
So I'll attempt to break that down into a couple things I've noticed over my many years of turkey hunting.
Mhm.
Even though it seems very flat, there are some, like, I can't even call them rolling hills, but this it's not completely flat. So there's dips in fields, and I tend to notice that although it's on a much, narrowed down scale, they will still use topography, even though it's a 2 to 4 foot elevation change, the same as they would use out by you, where it's a 200-foot elevation change.
Mhm.
I noticed that quite a bit. And I think because of that, if you can pinpoint, say, on one of your mapping apps, Onyx or Spartan Forge or whatever you're using, if you can pinpoint those little dips and rises, I still believe that they may start low. Say the typically fields are high and then the woods are on the bottom of them, at least around where I hunt. They may start low, but if they're curious or hear stuff farther away, they will come up to a higher point and they have a great vantage point from 2 to 4 feet higher in a cut cornfield. I started to notice that years ago. So we started to play, if you got a 500-acre field and you can see the woods, but you can't really see the middle part of it because there's a little drainage ditch in there. go get to that
Mhm.
drainage ditch. You got another perspective on it and gives you cover too for sneaking in on those birds.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect segue into like how so you know yeah, because it's not really you're right, they're not quite rolling hills, they're like super long hills, like super long rises and, a little bit of variance in the terrain there. When you're planning your setup, because obviously dealing with, you kind of alluded to it there, you've got that low spot or those one of those ditches or creeks or something marshy or whatever that you can kind of slip down through the bottom of, using that to your advantage. How do you tend to see birds using that terrain when they're maybe dealing with that 500-acre field and you're trying to get them across it? Like, do you have much luck pulling them all the way across a field? Obviously, you've got a lot of open space, I guess, to kind of contend with, depending on how you're doing that. But like, how do you like to use the terrain in your advantage or to your advantage, and how do you see birds doing the same thing as they move around through it?
So I've seen birds in the low area where the woods are, fly down as close to the tree as 50 feet away from it, or they soar 500 yards away from it. So I can't really give you a what am I seeing out of birds because it's a crapshoot. Depends on what they're feeling or if they ate their Wheaties the night before to get flying good. Um, Circle back to the last part of that question you just asked me.
How do you see birds moving through the terrain there, and like using it to cover larger bits of ground, like as the season progresses and everything, and they start splitting up and having to move more?
So they're always gonna. That's what it was. I put two questions together and it just made my brain like reboot for a second. um, I notice them. They're always typically following the hens if there are hens around.
Mhm.
So whatever way the hens kind of take, it seems like they're not going to walk like directly up the middle of the field. Although if you're driving, on the road and you see a bunch of birds, it kind of looks like they're in the middle of the field. I tend to think they have a quick, easy exit to safety. So they could be in like the third of the field closer to the wood line, or if there's a line fence or something, just so they have something to dive down into cover. And then my little segue into what I just forgot I was going to say was like the best way to approach those is use that topography in your favor also. So if they're up on a higher ridge, obviously dip down low below them or try to figure out where they're going to go and cut them off. But use that topography in your favor, even though it's only 4 feet or barely anything, you can still use it because they're only sticking 18 inches off the ground or 2 feet off the ground.
Mhm. For sure. On the note of topography there, and say like birds go up high, and even if it is 4 feet and stuff, do you ever have much issue with birds hanging up on that high little ridge? Like, say it's, paint a picture, maybe cornfield is, like we mentioned, kind of in that higher elevation space there. Um, you know, a lot of times, especially in ag fields, I'll set up on an edge. Um, Maybe, rarely is the wooded edge at the high point of the field. Usually the cornfield goes up, those birds go up there. They want to hang out there and strut where they can see everything, where all the hens can see those toms and everything as well. But I also see a lot of birds that get up there, stand up there and strut. They'll gobble at you a bunch, but they just don't budge. Do you tend to see the same thing happen? Do you think it's an elevation thing, or do you think it's more just like a big amount of space thing between the wood line and where they're at in their
I'll,
strut zone?
I'll contradict you and say it's none of those. I think they are looking down
Okay.
a higher point and they're seeing something they don't like down there. Whether it be, I have hens here, that hen doesn't look good enough, your calling's not good enough, not convincing enough. I've seen that plenty of times. And in those cases, what I like to do is either move farther away from the bird and continue calling to give them that
Mhm.
like allure that that hen is walking away, or at that point you just abandon it and try to circle back and get close to them. But I think it's more of they can see and what they're seeing isn't what they want at that current moment.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a quick sec to tell you about Lone Wolf Custom Gear. Lone Wolf Custom Gear is as good as it gets when it comes to mobile hunting equipment. Whether you're a saddle or stand guy, public land or private, Lone Wolf Custom Gear has a set of sticks, a stand, a camera arm, and any number of accessories to get you closer to your target buck. To make it even better, everything is 100% USA sourced and made right here in the Midwest. And it's even assembled right across the river in Iowa by hunters who love chasing deer just as much as you do. To build your kit today, go visit lonewolfcustomgear.com. Now, let's get back to the episode. Interesting. So you're not a big believer in the you can't call birds downhill thing. Like it's a, I guess, I mean, I'm assuming you like, maybe I'm reading between the lines there. Like, it sounds like you've had success pulling birds off of their strut zone or off of that area, to get down to, when you are calling them in a fashion that they want to be called to, or they see those decoys and they like how they look. That's fascinating because I've always lived by the adage, or I've been told the old adage of like, you can't call a tom downhill. And I've done it once with that trick, like you just said, with a buddy he set up and kept calling, working his way back down the hill. But unpack that a little bit more, like when it comes to making sure your setups sound when you are trying to call a bird downhill. Cause like it definitely throws a wrench into what your cover looks like. And like if you can put a branch over your head, maybe, or something that's going to give you that little bit of shade, break you up from that bird looking down into your setup rather than just having horizontal cover. You almost need to like add vertical cover, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where you kind of look for the downfalls or anything that's tipped over where you don't need like an umbrella over your head or anything, but that's where being still comes into play quite a bit. Um, Typically when we run and gun, I find a buckthorn. I mean, you know me, you've seen me. I'm not a small, dainty gentleman. I am extremely wide and tall, so there's not a lot of good spots that I can find, but you find a cluster of buckthorn where it breaks up your silhouette a little bit and don't move. I mean, you could kill a turkey in a red flannel if you wanted to. Just they see movement too. Like so that I've had them come down up off of hills, but I've also had them not come down off of hills. And I can't. If I knew what a turkey did every time, I would be the best guide anywhere in the world. But
Yeah.
I think
No.
it's very situational. I mean, if you
Mhm.
call into one tom and it's got 5, 6, 7 hens around it, of course it's not going to come down to you. You kind of got to read
Yeah.
the room a little bit. Like, yeah, if I walk into a room and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers in there and I'm trying to pick up a girl, I'm just turning around and walking out. Like,
That's funny, man. Um, Talk to me a little bit about calling. And I guess my first question is, does your calling strategy change over the course of the season? And if so, how does your calling, what's your cadence typically look like early on in the season? And how does that change as you get towards that, fourth, fifth, maybe sixth season?
so I'll break that down even farther. My calling sequences change hour to hour.
Okay.
So I was down at the Sitco store and I gave a turkey calling seminar down there. And I said the
Hmm.
best tool you can have in the turkey woods is your ears because you don't want to. I hate when people say, "Oh yeah, when you yelp, you got to do 3, or you do a 3, a pause, and then do 5." There's no exact cadence. I don't care who you are. You got to listen to what the birds are doing. If they're silent,
Hmm.
do a little putts in an experiment. But starting off when they're in the tree, you can tell, you have some birds that are really vocal in the tree. They fly down and they get real quiet. I've
Okay.
had birds that were super quiet in the tree, got down and got super vocal, and I match what they're doing. Kind of like what we do in fishing is you match the hatch. You're matching what calling they're doing. If you have a hen that's yelping 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times in a row, on that second to last one, I cut them off and I go louder. Like you're trying to intimidate and piss off the boss hen. And having a live decoy in your set is better than having just a decoy. So my cadences and everything kind of changes um, hourly. Literally, it depends on. I mean, I could be on one property and 3 flocks of birds, and all 3 of those flocks of birds I'm gonna be calling to differently.
Yeah. No, I like that, man. Yeah. Especially, yeah, you get that, 45 minutes after fly down, once all the gobbling stops and the birds kind of shut up. Maybe you can see them still out there, or see them, working off into whatever direction they're trying to go. But yeah, not being able to, and I guess that's a good question. Say you are running and gunning and you are, you know, you had a group roosted up the night before, get in there, they're chatting with you while they're on the limb. They fly down. Maybe they're hammering at you, but they're like, "Hey, lady, you got to come with me. Like, I'm not coming to you. I'm out in the middle of this field. Let's go. Like, I'm headed this way." So get them out of sight or, out of range, whatever it may be. Start to peel off. You're going to go find another group. What does your locator sequence look like? Are you trying to still throw some clucks and cuts and yelps and stuff like that and sound like the turkeys in that, after fly down window? Or are you starting to resort more to, maybe doing some owl hoots or crow calls? Or what's your like after fly down locating sequence look like?
So I don't use owl hoots or crow calls. I can't say I've ever had success with them. Um,
Mhm.
it could just be the general like 4 county area I'm hunting where we don't have a giant population of owls that are a threat, or insert whatever you want. I don't know. I haven't really
Mhm.
used those. If I'm walking and trying to relocate a flock of birds, it's every, call it 150 yards, depending on your cover. Um, Typically, I like to, if I'm sitting in the ground waiting for birds to come in, I start out and I don't know where they are. I start out quiet with a call and I kind of work my volume up a little bit. When I'm trying to search and find birds, say 9, 10 o'clock in the morning or whenever I peel off that original flock, I am going hard, fast, and aggressive. I'm doing real loud, no lead up into it. No, it's just yup, 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 yup. Just trying to almost get them to shock gobble, like scare the crap.
Mhm.
And I feel for me that works really well. Trying to figure out because you slam a car door and a turkey will gobble. So you're trying to do that, but without a car door. So I'm trying to get real aggressive, real loud, and almost startle them to where they gobble.
Mhm.
And then you can at least kind of figure out where they are in a general vicinity, and then you can make your play on them that way.
Yeah, totally, dude. I'm right there with you. When you're doing that locator, that loud, trying to get them to shock gobble almost, you generally let that rip in that series of yelps like you were just talking about? Do you try and switch it up and go like a couple like real sharp cuts into some yelps? What do you find the most success with typically in that cadence?
And I could be wrong when I say this, so hopefully the listeners don't yell at me. I like using the yelp. To me, when you do a loud like cut, to me that almost symbolizes like nervousness. Like
Hmm.
you ever hear a hen when they're nervous or see something, they kind of let out a couple of those stern ones like that. I don't want to imitate
Yep.
that, but I've heard plenty of hens yelp really loud for no reason, and nobody else around seems to get startled. If anything, you're like, "Shut up, Jenny. We're trying to eat our corn here." So I don't ever really do just the cluck. I'm not saying that wouldn't work. I like to do the yelp because to me it's a little more natural, and it doesn't, in my brain, it does not put them on edge, like something bad's about to happen.
Hmm. Yeah, no, totally makes sense. Cause yeah, you're right. That cut and that really loud, kind of chaotic stuff. Yeah, they might be getting pushed around by, a Jake or a Tom or something like that. And the Tom might come and investigate. But it also could very well be that, they saw me trying to get back around the tree after I just got done taking a leak behind it or something, and they're like, never mind. Sorry. That's some big ugly doofus over here. We're getting out of here," or a coyote or whatever it may be, right? Yeah, I like that a lot. And that's one I need to remind myself of for sure. Cause I like those cuts in especially timbered settings where it's like you can just kind of like shoot it through the woods. At least it's what it feels like, sort of.
Like
But
a
yeah, no, I like that a lot. Yeah, like try and make them feel comfortable and inviting more than, hey, there's something going on over here.
And again, that's my thought. I'm not a turkey. I wish I was, but that's kind of how I like process it. Because I've seen, even coyotes chasing a group of hens around. They get that real loud, aggressive, and I think that to me is it's like a danger call. Like
Hmm.
I'd rather not have that. And especially when you're trying to blind locate them, if you're walking around trying to
Yeah,
blind locate.
yeah, that's super true. Let me ask you that then. At what point is the appropriate time to throw those real aggressive cuts and, that some of that sharper, more aggressive type calling?
To
You
me,
think it's when you're going back and forth with the gobbler or?
it could be both. Like you could throw it in with when you're calling back and forth. If you got an active hen talking back to you, where you're kind of matching what she's doing.
Mhm.
Um, I don't
Sure.
prefer to throw those out that often if I don't have eyes on birds to see how they react.
Hmm.
That's just
Got it. That makes sense.
yep, because I want to see if a yelp like we were just talking about. A yelp is a yelp. Um, when you do that like sharper cut, I want to have a visual interpretation of what my sound just did to that bird, and if it freaked him
Hmm.
out, yep, taking that off. That goes back to your ears being your ears and your eyes, I guess in this case, being your best weapon out in the woods.
Yeah. 100%, dude. That's a great point. It's interesting because I don't know if it's a terrain difference type thing in strategy. I think it's definitely an experience difference, as you are far more experienced in the turkey woods than I am. But yeah, no, I like that approach because I think I do get a little call happy as tends to happen with folks, right? It's fun to get one to fire off and get that little instant gratification, that dopamine hit when one sounds off, even if he's 400 yards away and two valleys over. But yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna have to maybe start. I think I always get afraid that if I don't shock gobble them, they might come in quiet or they might not gobble or they might, something's gonna go haywire. And that right there, I think is, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to stop you there because you said
Yeah.
you're scared they're going to come in quiet. But
Yep.
first part of that is that they're coming in. So
Yep.
like,
Super true.
like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot there. I'd rather have them come in quiet and we get a gobbler on the ground than hear them come in the whole way.
That's super true. That, yeah. Yes, sensei. Yeah. That's super true, man. That's a very, very good point. I also haven't had that many, I mean, to my knowledge, I haven't had that many birds come in silent. Is that something that you tend to see start to happen over by you over the course of the season, or do you think they get more and more fired up as the season progresses and start getting more lonely?
So after actually the last 2 years, I've really started to pay more attention to, especially if I can see them. Like, we have a couple of spots on some of the properties we hunt where you can see 2 to 3 different fields from one little, like, pinch point, and I
Hmm.
love watching that because if we see birds in an opposite field, say 150 yards away, and if the leaves aren't growing up enough, we can see most of that field. It's interesting. They'll gobble, gobble, gobble like crazy and respond to you. And the second they get out of that field to transition, they shut their mouth.
Yep.
I don't know if that's I don't know, like try not to get eaten by a coyote kind of thing when they're in tight quarters and they can't really see much or what. But then again, I've also had like 3 jakes come screaming in just randomly through the woods. So take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But it is interesting. I feel like you can get them excited enough, but they are gonna come in silent, and this was 8 o'clock in the morning, so typically a time
Hmm.
where they're not quiet. It also goes back to every flock of birds is different, and we're just trying to put all those pieces together and figure out, kinda what flock it'd be cool if we could have, like, they are demonstrating A traits, like, we have to this flock is this way, like, have a little
Yep.
breakdown chart, but yeah,
Yeah, do a little turkey psychology. See if
yep.
we can, get some grant money funneled over to the DNR or something for that. Get those biologists on that. Yeah.
You have to give me a tag for every season so that I can experience it.
Exactly. In the name of research, I need 6 tags, please, at least.
But, I mean, I think
Maybe even one during youth weekend.
I honestly think it's like a defense mechanism for them. If they're in tighter
Totally.
terrain, they're gonna be quieter because 'cause they're not as whether it's thick buckthorn or an overgrown farmer's road, they can't sneak away as fast and they can't see a predator coming. That doesn't say they're not gonna gobble if they're all, you know, horned up or whatever, ready to go. But I noticed, like, the ones we've shot in years past that have taken those, pulled them from one field to another, they tend to get real quiet until they can see either your decoys or are out into the next little open area where they feel like, I don't know, they feel better. I mean, if you're sneaking through a hallway, I'll be yelling that, "Hey, I'm running in here." But when you get in the hallway, you're not screaming until you get,
Mhm.
you gotta go. I don't know.
Yep.
To me, it's kind of like their self protection. So,
Yeah. No, definitely, it makes sense, and I mean, you think about it in that, you know, from a turkey survivability standpoint, when they're in that flatter open ground, if there is a coyote in the bushes or in that little strip of timber or whatever, it's not like they can put a whole lot of space between them and that coyote because they're not great flyers. And in a foot race, I mean, I think the coyote might might come out on top there. Whereas in hill country, maybe they're a little bit more. I mean, part of it, yeah, they don't have the visual opportunities that they do in flatter, more open terrain. They've got to kind of project that sound, and they've got to do a little bit more vocalization to find one another, over the ridge or in that next little bowl or draw or whatever. But also, if there is a coyote or something comes after them, they can kick off in most places and cruise down the valley or cruise across over the next ridge. And they've just put a bunch of elevation between them and that predator. So there can be a lot more secure while also being vocal. That's a really good point, dude. Do you hunt much like wetland type area over by you or have much experience hunting birds and that kind of stuff, like swampy, marshy kind of terrain?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of the like the public chunks we hunt there. There's like creeks that go through, and there's
Mhm.
like the grassland areas that'll flood. Yeah, so we hunt, I'd say, quite a bit of it, and it's all typically either adjacent to cut down cornfields or alfalfa fields or whatever. Um, I find that's a nice transition area. Not right away in the morning, but as they're like do their first round through the field, they kind of cut through some of that tall marshy grass. And then we actually
Mhm.
discovered a few years ago they love laying eggs in there. So you get a lot of hens
Hmm.
down in there. A little bit, maybe not right in, it's not in the water, but like that marsh grass on the higher side. They like to,
Yep.
I don't know if they have good cover in there, kind of like you think of pheasant hunting. Pheasant will burrow in there. But we've noticed
Mhm.
the hens like start to lay eggs and everything in that type of areas.
Really? It's like super close to the creeks and, the water and stuff. Not like obviously in the floodplain, but like I'm sitting here picturing almost like I don't know, right now we've got a bunch of Canada geese making their nests and starting to hang out right on the edges. Is it like similar kind of nesting habitat to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that. I mean, around us, goose like nesting habitat is the park down the road, like 5 feet off the bike path. So
Yep.
a lot of experience with wild goose habitat. But yeah, it's you think of like just the perfect stuff to get ticks in. Like just think of it that way. But
Sure.
yeah, it's just kind of all matted down because if we had a couple of high waters where all that grass is kind of bent over flat, we've noticed more and more that there's hens, and they'll flush like a pheasant because they'll stay tight on their eggs, and it literally scares the shit out of you.
Yep. Yep. Been there, done that, dude. Yeah. That's funny, dude. So you kind of mentioned it sounds like the toms, they do their rounds of the field. And then is it almost like they're just checking those kind of wet, marshy-ish areas just to see if hens are still maybe susceptible, if the hens are hanging out and they're feeding? Those areas, like, are they maybe seeking shade and stuff over there too as the season starts getting hotter? Or like how do you tend to see the toms using that type of terrain, if at all?
I can't say I've ever seen them like. I'm thinking of one property in general here that I can
Mhm.
picture this whole layout where it's like a creek. On the one side of the creek, it's like a higher, quick elevation on like an old, I don't know, 40-year-old tractor path, and it kinda goes up
Sure.
to it's all public land now, so it's not farmed, but it's like a flatter that would have been a crop field, and then on the other side of the river, it's that marshy, grass, and then it goes to like that, what is it, sawblade grass or switchgrass
Mhm.
or whatever, and then
Yep.
goes into another, this is private land at this point, but like a crop field. I noticed I don't see them strutting in there at all. To me, it's just like a little transition zone. I don't know if they're going, if they're checking for anything, or if they're literally going to the river, get a drink of water, and go up check the other field up on the high side. I can't I can't pinpoint it. I mean, if I you see one in there and you get him excited, yeah, he's gonna strut out there. But I don't
Mhm.
see it just because it's too could be too thick of grass or something that they can't really see as much that they're not going to be really strutted in there. Um,
Sure.
just from my experience, and I'm kind of playing it off of the one property. So I've
Yeah,
been
no, that makes sense.
it's kinda hard when you're, standing 2 feet off the ground, and you're
Yeah.
standing 4 feet of grass, you can't really see anything. So to me, I
Right.
think they wanna find those a little bit more open areas, but again, it's comfort for them. They can sneak through there without being seen, got access to water, and then a field on the other side within 250 yards of the other field. So to me, it's more of like a transition area.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. If anything, maybe like a pinch point that, they'll kind of filter through and, check throughout the day or as they make their rounds and stuff. Do you tend to see birds in your neck of the woods roosting kind of in relation to water? I've heard a lot of folks over the past couple of years talk about like turkeys roosting near water, wherever there's a creek, wherever there's a pond or something like that. Um, they've been, swearing by it. Do you tend to see that as well?
I'm gonna tend to lean a little bit away from that. and it's just the properties that I hunt. Typically a lot more ag, and little dense wood packs throughout
Hmm.
anywhere between 5 and 40 acres of woods. I can't say they correlate between their you know roosting near a river. It doesn't check out in like where I hunt. Not
Sure.
saying that water isn't a good thing, but if I got a pond and I got no trees that turkeys are going to roost in there, they're not going to roost by the pond. They're going to roost in a tree they can roost in, and that's could be when they coast down farther to go to the water. But I don't have in our area here, at least the properties that we hunt, I can't say that there's any relation to it. At least not
Sure.
in like you get a big patch of dense woods maybe where there's a lot more roosting trees, and instead of picking up a dozen trees on one property that they're going to roost in, where you got 40 dozen trees, yeah, they could pinpoint down to water or anywhere where some food is available for them that way. But I think
Sure.
the properties I hunt, I can't relate to that statement, so I'm not
Yeah.
confirming nor denying.
No, it makes sense, dude, because you're absolutely right. Like you kind of got almost like spider webs of timber as it works through, the high points, the low points, the fence lines, the power lines and stuff like that that kind of create the limited to an extent roosting habitat for those birds and everything. So that definitely makes sense. Yeah, it's like find somewhere safe first, then we can be picky after that. But I like that. So, dude, walk me through open ag country turkey strategy for me. You've got these birds roosted. Are you patterning them or trying to pattern them the night before? What's your setup? How close are you trying to get to these birds? In the like, I'm assuming you're setting up in these strips of timber and everything. Walk me through a little bit, like what your strategy is looking like over by you.
So I have a almost 8-year-old child and 14 other things going on, so there's not a lot of days I get to roost birds. Um,
Hmm.
that's we're looking at, your onyx or your Spartan forage for denser trees that, you can typically see bigger trees on there. You kind of figure out not necessarily that they're going to be in that one, but if you can find a cluster of timber and there's like four of those bigger oak trees or um, whatever trees you think they're roosting in just a bigger stature where they can hold them, that's what I'm looking for to begin with. And then to be honest, I tend to not get out there like an hour before sunup. Um,
Hmm.
Using the little topography we have and the line fences, typically on most egg fields, I like to get out there right as the sun's coming up, like a little bit of twilight pre-sun up, still
Yep.
30, 20 minutes before legal. And I just listen. So if I think they're in one of these two wood patches and I hear a goblin and I hear them in X or Y, I'm going to go set up on X or Y. I can use, the line fences to my favor to sneak down, cut through the line fence, set up. I may not be able to get a decoy out depending on how close they are, but I call it the lazy man hunting, where I'm not out there, you know, 2 hours before sun up. But I
Hmm.
also, I can't scout the birds the night before. So to me, that's a very effective way to figure out where birds are roosted. And if they're not on the property, then you just sit and figure out where they land and kind of make a game plan after that. But that's typically what I'll do. So legal shooting is 5:05. I'll get out there at 4:30. It's still starting to get light out, and I'll just listen. Again, comes back to your ears, your best tool out there. So you're listening for those birds, trying to figure out where they are, and then look at your map. If you got a line fence, you can put between you and the birds and get as close as you can while you still have some sort of darkness. Is always better. Otherwise, you have to set up on the opposite side of that line fence, which sometimes isn't the best thing to do. But that's kind
Right.
of how I break down every morning we go out hunting.
Yeah, makes sense. On the note of e-scouting there, you mentioned like we're fortunate in Wisconsin that we've got leaf off imagery at our disposal on Onyx and whatever application you or hunting application you use for your mapping and everything. Are there any other terrain features and stuff that you like to key in on when e-scouting a new piece for turkeys? Are you looking for kind of like those secluded back corners, or like what are some of like the features you'd like to use when e-scouting to think,
I
man,
mean,
it looks like this could probably hold birds.
the big thing is what literally holds birds is roosting trees. So if you pull up
Sure.
the leaf off images and you can see down to the forest floor, there's a high probability there's not going to be any birds roosted there. I can't tell you what type of trees they are, like from aerial views when there's no leaves on them, but you typically, if the tree is bigger and you can't see down to the forest floor, there's a good chance it may be some, roosting type trees. Um, as for that, yeah, some corners, if you can find some open areas on a map where they may fly down once you found out where they're going to roost, kind of fly down and have a little strutting area in the morning. Um, I don't deal with a lot of dense wood stuff, so I can't help you on that part. So we have a lot of either CRP or farm fields, but typically what you want to look for is, yeah, if you have all CRP or flat grass areas or kind of anything where they plant the trees in and do whatever on public pieces, you want to look for open areas adjacent or very close to those roosting areas. And it may not be right away in the morning, but at some point they're going to come out into those openings. So it's you gotta find where they roost first, because if there's no bedroom in a house, nobody's sleeping there. That's kinda
Mhm.
work your way down from there. But yeah, the big thing is really trying to find good what you think is good, like, roosting trees and area.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great point there. I like that bedroom in the house analogy. That's good. um, you mentioned getting in there early, but not so early that, you can't figure out where they're at if you haven't done any prior scouting. Hopefully, you're early enough that you're able to maybe get a decoy staked out if it's safe to do so. Say you're somebody who either doesn't have a decoy or they're worried about bringing one with them on public or something like that. What types of areas, what types of calling strategy, what advice do you have for them, I guess, if you're going to be hunting this more flat kind of open land without decoys? What do you like to do when you're running and gunning just
Well,
solo?
there's 3 things you can really do. If you're getting in there in the morning and you try to position yourself where you can cut them off going to where they're gonna strut right away in the morning in those
Mhm.
openings, literally putting a block between you and them. A little more difficult, second option would be set up on the field and try to pinpoint exactly where they're gonna land, but if they got nothing there to focus their eyes on, there's a good chance they're not gonna stick around. The third option would be figure out a general area where they're gonna land, set a little farther away from it, but tuck yourself in, say 5 more yards. So when you're calling, they can't see where that call's coming from, but they know it's in the wood line. I know the thing is when you set up on a edge of a field and you call, they're looking in the edge of the field for birds. If they don't see anything, they're not gonna come over there. But if you set
For
in
sure.
10, 15 feet, so you still have a shot to the field, and you call, they have very good like GPS on where those calls come from. And I think they kind of can't see it. They may not come running in, but they know something might be in there that they can't get their eyes on, and they may circle around back to you just to investigate it. And that's probably my other way of doing it. The third way is just kind of tuck back in a little bit more if you're not running a decoy.
Totally. Yeah, I like that. Do you do much calling on the limb?
To locate them, yes. If you
Okay.
get if you get like 2 or 3 responses, they know where you are. If you have decoys out, they'll eventually see them when it gets lighter out, and they're either gonna
Right.
fly your way or they're not. Like, no sense in calling them like crazy and scaring them off. I kinda use the theory less is more with a lot of turkey hunting, unless you yeah, I would say less is more. I just get their attention because they know where that call's coming from. Um, the only thing I would say is you could always try doing, like, a fly down call, like, ruffle some brush,
Mhm.
kinda do that, like, slow, 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 like, kinda like the sound they make when they fly down, and then rustle some feathers.
Mhm.
That would be the most calling I would do in, like, one sequence, I guess, or, after you locate them. But even then, man, they're gonna fly down when they want to anyways. It's really
Yeah.
what it comes down. You're just trying to time it
For
right
sure.
so it seems like you did that. Like,
Yep. Super true, man. Well, dude, what tags do you have rattling around in your pocket this year? What's on the agenda for you this spring?
I got second period and second to last period. think those are
Okay.
the 2 I got. I may pick up an F if they're still available, depending on how my season goes and what the other podcasts and those adventures are taking me into. So, but yeah, that's what I got going on now.
Very nice. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. Second season and fifth season. Fifth season, I don't think I've ever eaten a fifth season tag. If I were to think maybe 1 year or so, and that was because I had like a data hunt or whatever. But dude, I absolutely love that period of the season when it's late, the weather's good. It kind of sucks. You got to get up super early, but man, those birds are just so susceptible and they're so fired up and they're so still just like hanging on for dear life, trying to find those last couple of hens to breed with and everything, man. I like when I think fondly of those turkey hunting mornings, it's usually like second to last or second to last week of April and that second to last week of the season. So kind of that like season, I guess second season and the fifth season right there that you got there. I'm stoked for you, dude. Yeah, I got a third and a fourth season right now for zone one, which you end up you've mentioned a couple times you're a very busy man and have a lot on your plate. But if you were to find an open afternoon to or morning or whatever it may be to scooch on over to zone one, I think we could probably find a couple birds or two to chase around. So hopefully we can maybe make something like that work. But dude, we've been going for a little over an hour here now. It's right in the middle of our week here. I don't want to keep you too long here, but dude, what new projects, what new products or anything? What do you got going on over at Weathered Oaks, and where can folks go to find some of your awesome calls and follow along with what you're doing this spring?
Yeah, thanks. The only new product we've launched and unveiled is our covers. They fit most of our 3.5-inch calls. They are custom and we make custom. So there may be a tick of a fitment issue, whether it be a little too tight. They're not going to be too loose, but if they're a little too tight, there's some little bit of adjustability there. Um, as for that, we prototype calls every year. Nothing crazy spectacular, just some mixing and matching with woods and different striking materials. But if you're interested in everything we got, it's weatheredoaksgamecalls.com. We're on all the social medias. And I will say, after that trade show, our stock is limited and we are done building stock calls for the year. So what we have left on our website is it for the season. No pressure, but that's how we like to get out and hunt during turkey season. So
Awesome, man. I love it. Yeah, folks, do yourself a favor. Go check out Weathered Oaks Game Calls. Get your hands on one of those two-sided calls. You will not regret it. Like I said, I have yet to find need for any other pot calls in my vest. And especially if you're a minimalist hunter, having both those sides at your disposal is freaking awesome for whatever scenario you find yourself in. But dude, this has been awesome, man. Always great chatting with you. I'm stoked for this season. I really hope we're able to link up and either chase some birds or harass some fish or something this spring before summer kicks off and gets away from us. But man, this has been awesome, dude. Have a great evening. Good luck this spring, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
you as well, man. Thanks again.